Hey guys, it's Shelby, and I just looked back on some of the videos when I was trying to draw some of the stuff for you guys. However, I noticed that my laptop recording system will not let me record more than one tab. So if I choose the PowerPoint tab, it's going to record the PowerPoint tab the entire time and won't let me reflect back on any internet uses or any of my drawings that I made. So that kind of sucks. So what I would suggest in those PowerPoints when I'm talking about the drawings or the internet searches, go ahead and search them up with me, or listen to my description of the drawing and draw them with me. And you'll I explained the drawings pretty well. And with the internet searches, I just usually chose from one of the first three pictures. So just kind of look over some of those internet search pictures, and you'll figure out what I'm talking about. Moving forward, I'm going to try to if I do any outside resources of drawings and stuff, I'll go ahead and turn on the webcam portion, and then I'll draw it out so you guys are looking at me draw it out from now on, because uh I messed that one up in the past 6 videos. Okay. All right. Anyways, so chapter 7 is about adaptive immunity. So this is what comes in when our first and second line have been compromised, and now we need bigger and better cells such as antibodies and T and B lymphocytes to come into play, so we can attack that infection that didn't get fixed with inflammation and the skin barriers. Okay. So adaptive is more slow and specific. However, it can, after the first primary interaction with a specific organism, it will memorize it and hold a memory, so it will quickly attack it if there's a secondary interaction. So it destroys infectious microorganisms that are resistant to inflammation, provides long-term effective protection. This defense system is inducible, so it must recognize the pathogen as foreign and is specific and unique in the how the pathogen is identified. So pathogens have these antigen receptors on the outside of them. Us too, we have these things called HLA antigens that we present. And so if we're presenting stars on our cells and they're presenting hearts, we're going to be like, hey, that ain't the right shape. Only stars are in this household, so we're going to attack the ones that have heart shapes on them. And we'll recognize that shape, and we'll make a little cutout of that heart, and we'll have those special antibodies that have the matching cutout of the heart to be able to attack those heart antigens that the foreigners are coming in with. Okay, if that kind of makes sense, we're presenting stars, they're presenting hearts, and we're like, hey, get the hell out. We're going to make like antibodies that will attach to those antigens. Yeah. Okay. So it's and if you think of antibodies, think of like puzzle pieces. So we have one end of a puzzle piece, and we're trying to figure out what will connect and attach to that puzzle, that edge of that puzzle piece. So usually that puzzle piece will have an inversion of the puzzle piece that you're going to try to connect it to. So then they perfectly match up and they bind together, right? Same thing with antibodies. They're going to bind to each little puzzle piece edge shape, and so it can't do any further harm. It's just going to be attacked by antibodies. But we'll get further into that. Why am I skipping steps right now? Okay. Okay, so adaptive immunity is more slow, long term. It includes antibodies and B and T cells. Antigens are foreign infectious agents that interact with the immune system, cancers, environmental substances, and self-antigens. Adaptive immunity. So components of adaptive immunity branch into 2 points. It can either be humoral, which involves antibodies that attack cells and viruses and to protect the body. Antibodies are proteins. So antibodies are like those puzzle pieces I said that bind to the edge of the puzzle piece, and so they can't go around, and they're being attacked and like neutralized. Um, so it can bind and to bind to bacteria and viruses. Cellular immunity, however, is the differentiation of T cells that become T cytotoxic cells, which attack and kill bacteria and viruses that develop, so that attack these foreigners, and others develop into leukocytes, active leukocytes that do cell-to-cell contact combats. B and T cells must collaborate for antibody response and produce memory cells, which means they both are able to remember specific antigens and respond more quickly. So in bacteria, you're going to have in bacterial infections, you're going to have an increase in neutrophils in high temperatures. So we're going to have an increase in our innate immune system. In viruses, we're going to have an increase in our lymphocyte system. So it's because we're dealing with more sneakier virus guys. So the adaptive immunity is dealing more with viruses, where innate is dealing more with bacteria. But some bacteria can induce our adaptive immunity as well. Now, B lymphocytes, remember, B antibody has a B in it, and it's for bacteria. T cells are for viruses, or why did I write that? Scratch that. Oh my gosh, don't. Okay, so B cells are produced by antibodies. T cells are cytotoxic T cells that kill. They're the frontline guys. They're the what would you call them? What do they call those Marines that are frontline? I think they're called frontline Marines, something like that. But they're the actual fighters. They're fighting face to face with the bad guys. Adaptive immunity can be passive or active. It all depends if the antibodies or T cells are produced by the individual or they're administered. So active is when our body naturally builds its own antibodies and T and B cell T and B cell receptors and stuff. So now this can come with an actually having the sickness and building up immunity to that sickness, or being administered a vaccine where we're not actually getting sick, but we have slight weakened viruses and bacteria that are injected to ourselves, so we can easily fight that, and our T and B cells will remember that and will build up antibodies for it. So yeah, active is something we build up ourselves. Passive is when it's given to us. So passive can be when in pregnancy through the placenta. It can be through breast milk or like RhoGAM shots. So RhoGAM shots are just like a pure vaccine vial of straight antibodies. So it's wait, why did I say vaccine? It's a pure syringe of antibodies. So we're like injecting those antibodies in us. They're not the same thing as vaccines. Vaccines are dead microorganisms that can help our body easily fight them and remember them. Now, RhoGAM shots and antibody shots are like the actual antibodies themselves that are injected into us so we can use them to fight bacteria in the future. So not the same thing. Passive is when we don't actually grow it ourselves. We get it from mommy or we get it from a shot. Okay. So we have now we have humoral immunity, and humoral immunity deals with antibodies. They are produced by plasma cells. Do not write B cells. They're B lymphocytes differentiate and create plasma cells, and the plasma cells are what produce the antibodies, not the B lymphocytes. Make sure to be aware of that on the test. They're not produced by B lymphocytes, they're produced by plasma cells. There are 5 classes. There's IgG, IgA, IgM, IgD, IgE. And they are characterized by their different shapes. If you look at different shapes, this is IgM, big, Ig massive, I call it. It's big. IgG, more abundant. It's great in numbers. IgE, I think eosinophil, which is allergies, histamine responses. IgA is secretions. I think acne because secretions in my mind, I have oily skin, so I secrete a lot of oil, and I think IgA, acne, IgA, secretions of sebum. Weird. Maybe that doesn't work for you, but works for me. And IgD is like IG dummy. Like we really don't know what is going on with it. We just know that it attaches to B early B lymphocytes. Direct and indirect functions of antibodies. So the primary function of antibodies is to protect against infection. It can be direct or indirect. There's 3 different mechanisms. There's an inactive or block of binding. So that's like attaching different puzzle pieces all around that one puzzle piece, and so we're neutralizing it. We blocked it around all edges so it can't do any harm. So it's kind of like when someone gets tied down. We're like tying each limb down, so we're restraining each limb so it can't cause problems, so we're neutralizing it. And so it can't like cause any problems. Clump is when we agglutinate. So basically, that's if I were to get a whole bunch. So if I had antibodies, I would call those antibodies handcuffs. And if I wanted to keep a whole group of something I didn't like together, like if I didn't like a group of people, I would handcuff them all together with all these antibodies, which my antibodies are my handcuffs, and then I'd get this big clump of things I didn't like because I clumped them all together using the handcuffs. Does that kind of make sense? Like I don't know how else to explain it, but I think of like agglutination, like handcuffing two people together. So killing two birds with one stone, rather than spending a whole bunch of antibodies on just one microorganism. I would use them to clump them all together so my B lymphocyte can come and sweep them out real quick. Or my T lymphocyte, sorry, my T lymphocyte. In my neutrophils and stuff, you know. Okay, let's not get too sciencey right now. Also, there is precipitation, which is making a soluble antigen out of an insoluble participant. So we're turning ice into water, basically, so we can sweep it up, you know, easily get it down in our neutrophils, so our neutrophils can sweep it up easily. Indirect would cause include inflammation, phagocytosis, activation of complement systems, and protection. So back to like the kinin system and the complement system, we're going to use some antibodies in that to activate that cascade. Okay, moving on. IgA. There's two. There's IgA found in blood and IgA2, which is found in body secretions. These are called dimers. They consist of two smaller molecules that are held together by a J chain. Schneider said we really don't need to know the whole formation of an antibody, but these degrade. These protect these pro these these okay, I'm going to try that again. Anyways, it prevents the attachment and invasion of pathogens through mucosal membranes. Gosh, that was way too hard to try to say. Oh, okay. IgD, I like to call this one IG dummy because we really don't know what's going on here. It's low in concentrations and we really are unsure of what's going on because info about its role is limited, but we know it attaches to early B cells. IgE, so think eosinophil, mass, parasites, allergies. So it's in low concentrations and it's the mediator of allergic responses. It fights against parasitic infections as well and initiates inflammatory responses. And the eosinophils attack the site of parasitic infections. IgE binds with IgE receptors on mast cells. So if you look at this, we have two IgE antibodies bind to it, and then this parasite antigen then binds to it as well. And that will then cause mast cell degranulation to release histamine. And now that histamine is going to cause vasodilation, which will cause diapedesis of the white blood cells, which can further attack the parasite. Okay. They also release lysosomal enzymes that damage microorganisms. Yep. Yep. Okay. IgG is the most abundant. This is, I like to think of IgG like IG great, it's the greatest one, or IG growth because it's what's used when growing a baby. So this one can pass the placenta to ensure health in our baby. It can activate a complement cascade. It's transplacental. It's a neutralizing antigen. So again, there's so many that we can just, rather than doing agglutination, we can have them all attack all the edges of that puzzle piece, like we were talking about. The IgG is yep. Okay. So yeah, it's just the greatest one. And so you'll see that it protects the most in infections. And these guys are what go up in number if we have a second interaction with a microorganism. Due to our memory cells, we'll be able to produce more of these right away. IgM, Ig massive. So it's the largest immunoglobulin, and it's the first antibody to be produced. So like the bouncers at bars, they're normally big guys. Whenever there's anyone fighting or someone bad coming in, those big guys are normally the first ones to run and help solve the solution. The big guys, we're sending the big bad boys first. Early responder. Primary and secondary responses. So primary is our first interaction. So we meet this lovely guy on the first date. We really don't know how to respond to it, so we're going to adapt. Our second response, we're going to remember, and we're going to build up antibodies quickly because we remember them. Is my phone going off? Back to this, like I was saying, IgM in secondary responses don't go up, but IgG does. And we have the initial exposure, so the first time they see each other, the latent period is how the B cells can differentiate and make all the antibodies. So the B cells need, like we said earlier, the B cells need to differentiate into plasma cells so the plasma cells can make antibodies. We don't just go from B cells making antibodies. We need those to first differentiate into plasma cells, and that is called the latent or lag phase. Okay? And then we don't have that latent or lag phase in the secondary response because we already have those memory plasma cells, memory B cells, or whatever you want to call them. So the secondary response is more rapid and larger amounts are produced. It's more rapid because we have memory cells that do not have to differentiate. And IgM is produced in similar quantities, but IgG is produced in greater numbers. I said that like 3 times. Okay. Learning objective time. Flipping back. Okay, so I'm going to go back to chapter 6 when we were talking about the third one, because I skipped that on chapter 6 because I don't want to confuse y'all. So, okay, the third response is called adaptive immunity. It's high alert, very specific. Memory cells are involved. Antibodies are involved. So yeah, we have in this adaptive immunity, we have effector T cells, which causes white blood cells to divide and multiply and be, the frontline Marines to fight the situation. They send out chemicals in the lymph nodes to release more white blood cells for a greater army. The alarm system, so they, alarm to have more come. Effector B cells, they differentiate into plasma cells, which can secrete antibodies, and those are the little guys, like I said, the handcuffs that can keep all the bad guys in one general area, so we can sweep them out later. in one brush. They also neutralize by all attacking and also helping changing that ice cube into water so we can quickly drink it up. Okay. Um, Briefly describe humoral, cellular, active, and passive immunity. Active is when we have exposure to an antigen, either through actually getting sick with it or having an immunization of weaker cells, weaker microorganism cells or viral cells. And so those can help us build up antibodies and memory cells and T cells to quickly target those cells if we do ever come in contact with them, or if we do ever have a second um, interaction and sickness with them. We can quickly attack them so we don't get sick. Passive immunity is when we, the host, do not actually build up those antibodies ourselves. We either get it through mom's boob, we get it through placenta, or we get a RhoGAM shot. I cannot stress this enough. A RhoGAM shot is not the same thing as a vaccine. A vaccine is a weakened bad guy, so we can memorize it. A RhoGAM shot is like a vial of straight antibodies that we inject in ourselves to help us for a little time period. It doesn't last forever. Passive does not last forever. You eventually need to build up your own immunity yourself. Humoral immunity. Humoral immunity is antibodies. So it's from B cells being activated, differentiating into plasma cells, immunologic memory. It can be active or passive. Like I said, it can come from mom, or it can come from us actually building up our antibodies ourselves. And humoral is antibodies. Antibodies, humoral. Yeah, so it marks them for destruction. Well, the antibodies mark them for destruction. They bind to bacteria, toxins, and viruses. They inactivate them temporarily. So they basically like tag them, like this is a bad guy. Come on, T cell, swipe them out. Now, cell mediated immune cell, which is dealing with T lymphocytes, not B lymphocytes. B lymphocytes is humoral. T lymphocytes is cell mediated, and we're going to have clonal selection, differentiation, cytokines, helper T cells, cytotoxic T cells, and regulatory T cells. And these guys are macrophages, killers. There are they're what I like to call our frontline marine. They're going to go get them out. um, they're going to fight those guys face to face. IgG is the most common. It's Ig great or Ig growth because it's what can cross the placenta in the growing baby, or it's the greatest because it's the greatest number of cells and it's the best protector, and it helps neutralize. IgA, body secretions, sebum, acne, body secretions. That's how I remember it. Ig1 is in blood. Ig2 is in body secretions. Yeah, this just helps us through mucosal protection. So in our snot, these help us just, yeah, snot and mucus just helps get them out. IG massive, that's the bouncer, the first guy to come into primary responder, first guy. IgD, IG dummy, we don't really know what's going on. It's low concentrations, but it is on early B cells. IgE, IG eosinophil, parasitic infections, allergy responses, initiates release of histamine from mast cells, and the activation of basophils, I believe. Basophils, maybe. kind of a little question on the basophils. Don't note me on that one. But yeah. And okay, and moving on. Primary immune response is the initial response. We are going to have a lag in latent phase, which is when our B cells differentiate into plasma cells so they can produce antibodies. So it's going to take some time to get that antibody production. And that is the so that's the latent or lag phase is when we have to have clonal selection. So we're making the perfect puzzle piece that would fit onto that antigen of the microorganism that's attacking us. And yeah, so that's the primary immune response. It's a slower. The secondary immune response, we have memory cells, so we can produce that antibody right away and like really fight it right away to the point where like we're not sick because we just have good immunity. All right, a signaling molecule that attracts white blood cells is a chemokine. A pattern of recognition on protein or innate immune cells is toll-like receptors. A substance that releases damaged cells and activates coagulation is tissue factors, and enzymes that degrade fibrin polymers in a clot are plasmin. So yeah, so toll-like receptors I like to think are the eyes of the innate immune system. So they're this is innate. I should have done this in the last chapter. Crap, I'm just going to do it right now. So the innate, I like to think they're the eyes. They're the cops of the innate immune system. Okay? We went over natural killer cells eliminate virus-infected cells. Interferons, guys, is it's kind of like when you have a burglary in a neighborhood. We're not always going to produce those antiviral proteins, but when we have a robber in the neighborhood, all the other neighbors, they're going to start locking up their houses and turning on their alarm systems, so they don't get robbed. It's when you tell your neighbor cells, hey, this is what happened. It was infected. Put on high alert so it doesn't happen to you. And so now the neighboring cells are going to produce antiviral proteins so that virus can't invade them either. So they learn from their neighbor. So back to what I was saying, interferons. When a virus gets in one cell, that's going to produce interferons. So that's the warning message to the neighbors, like, hey, turn on your security alarms. Turn on your antiviral protein so they don't attack you either, because look at what they did to me. Okay? Defensins are antimicrobial peptides. Kinins are proteins that are activated in the inflammatory response. Pattern recognition receptors is one innate immune cell can recognize many different types of these pattern recognition receptors. So they're the guys that recognize the TLRs recognize these patterns on the bacteria. So the bacteria has patterns that are recognized by the toll-like receptors, and the toll-like receptors are the cops and go, hey, look at that pattern right there. That doesn't look right. So, like I was saying, we're carrying stars. The mean guys are carrying hearts. We'll be like, hey, this is a house of stars. Why do we have hearts coming in? And those toll-like receptors will see that, and those hearts would be called pattern recognition receptors, and the TLRs will look at those patterns and be like, that ain't right, that's not normal, and they'll tag them so they can be destructed. Yep. I talked about opsonization. It's the outside when we see that. So PAPS, PAMP is pathogenic. DAMP is injured stressed host cell. So PAMP is so say we have a cytotoxic T cell. PAMPs are what a bacteria expresses for a T cell to recognize and kill. A DAMP is what our own cells, our own host cells, release and have on their cell surface, so our cytotoxic T cells can kill those too, because we don't want our infected, injured stress cells reproducing. That's not good. So basically a DAMP is like causing self-destruction. It's saying, hey, kill me because I ain't good right now. And a PAMP, it's what a pathogen is expressing and it doesn't even know it. And those cytotoxic T cells are going to come over and go, hey, look at, you got a PAMP on your back. I'm going to not let you live in this house, okay? Yep. So CAMs, chemotaxins, are when cytokines are high. So our injured cells release cytokines, and those cytokines cause CAMs to be produced on the blood vessel wall, and those CAMs and chemotaxins are what attract white blood cells, and white blood cells will move through by diapedesis. PMN is polymorph nuclear. I've never heard that. I don't think we need to know that. The function of fibroblasts is to secrete collagen. So really look up a video on the clotting system, and you'll see how what thrombin does, what X factor does, and what thrombin does, and how now you got fibrin and what fibrin does, and then the fibrin mesh cloth. So fibroblasts release collagen too, and that's all in the making of making new cells to close up the injured cells, to replace the injured cells. Yep. Okay. No, so that was all innate practice book questions. I'm going to talk about now I'm going to talk about adaptive practice book. So humoral is B lymphocytes, cell-mediated is T lymphocytes. A antibody-producing cell is a plasma cell. A cell that suppresses immune response to self-antigens is a T regulatory cell. A small antigen that binds to a large molecule that induces immune response is hepatin. A portion of the antigen that is recognized by antibody is an epitope. So say my physiology teacher explained this, like say say you're trying to see who stole your sunglasses. So obviously the person who stole your sunglasses is going to be a bad guy because they're stealers. And so now say the stealer, the person the bad guy who stole your sunglasses is wearing your sunglasses now. You'll know that that's the bad guy because they're wearing your sunglasses. Those sunglasses are the epitope. So those are what's recognized by the immune system is like, hey, you're a bad guy because you stole my sunglasses. Okay. A portion of the antigen that is recognized by, oh, I already went over that, molecule that activates T helper cell 2 cells. That's a super antigen. We went over antibodies, passive, and so androgynous. Um, Okay, so sorry about that. I didn't realize that when my son came by me, he turned off my microphone. Um, okay, where was I at? MHC and HLA antigens are the same. B lymph physical interactions between B lymphocytes and Th2 cells are necessary for B lymphocytes to become activated. Central are receptors against self-antigens, so the difference between central and peripheral tolerances. Receptors against self-antigens are eliminated, and peripheral tolerance is when are suppressed by regulatory T cells and other mechanisms. So central is when it's tolerances, so we don't attack ourselves, and peripheral is when we don't over attack the invaders to the point that we end up attacking ourselves. So we gotta, the T regulatory cells kind of pipe down the fighters and are like, okay, hey, the fight's over. Like, calm down. We don't need to fight anymore. Um, Antibodies defend bacteria and viruses, like attack against them, and T cells defend virus-infected cells and abnormal host cells. Um, so, um, the difference between MHC class 1 and MHC class 2, that's a good question. I'm going to go ahead and search that. So MHC class 1 are antigens, are molecules that are presented to cytotoxic T cells, and MHC class 2 are antigens that are presented to helper T cells with CD4 receptors. Okay? Um, and there's IgE, all of those. What's the difference between androgynous? So this was, androgynous. Whoa, what the heck? Wow, that is so weird. It was typing backwards. I've never seen that. Nice. So, exogenous are variables used in the short run, whereas androgynous are used in the long run. Okay, that didn't give me any insight. Antigens. Difference. So exogenous enter the body from outside, and androgynous are generated from the inside of the body. Androgynous antigen cells produce androgynous antigens when they are infected by a pathogen, and exogenous antigens are outside of the cell. Okay. Ugh. All right. Another name for antigenic determinant is epitope. CD1 produce exogenous lipid. Helper T cells, MHC class 2 cells, restricted, MHC1, cytotoxic. So helper T cells are with MHC2. Cytotoxic T cells are MHC1. Okay. Yep. All right. That is it, guys.